Greetings, everyone. This is Pamela Lawrence, your host, your friend, your coach. They have another great guest, my new good friend, Lorna Gale, originally from Alberta, Canada, now based in British Columbia, in Canada. And we connected through the serving circle in a powerful conversation 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Mhm.
And right away, I knew that I had to bring you on. So I'm not going to say anything else. I'll let you introduce yourself. So without any further ado, Lorna, welcome to the show, my friend.
Wonderful, Payman. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. And yes, hearkening from Western Canada.
All right.
Yeah, I'm excited for our conversation and
All right.
yeah, looking forward to this.
Thank you. Me too. Same here. So we're going to talk about your business and all that good stuff later on. But first, what I'm really
Mhm.
interested in and want to really dive deep into is to get to know you first and foremost as a human being, as a person, as a woman. Who's Lorna as a person, as a human being, and as a woman, first and foremost?
Mm. And I love that you've asked that. And in some ways, it's kind of this journey of how do we pull apart, tease apart the different aspects of who we are, because business is who I am, an expression and an extension of who I am. Let's see, a little bit of a glimpse of who I am. Um, I am a mother, a grandmother, a wife. I have a beautiful family back in Alberta, and I live here with my in BC with my family, my two daughters and their children. They're my grandchildren, so I'm loving doing that. And yeah, I love the aspect of family, this piece about how do we look at the different configurations of family and who we are. And I'm loving the outdoors. I'm loving nature, being able to look it through my window as well as being outdoors in it.
Beautiful. Love that. Love that. Love that. So, first and foremost, I'd like to start with a series of rapid fire questions to further get to know you as a person. Ready?
Okay, yeah,
What makes
sounds
you
good.
happy?
Makes me happy. My children, my grandchildren, um, and cats. I love
Oh,
cats.
really? Okay. Okay, cool, cool, cool. What makes you smile?
Hmm. Great question.
Yeah.
Various things. Sometimes it is absolutely, those aspects of like when my husband, when we talk on the phone and he talks to me about some of the animal things that he's seen or whatever, some of
Yeah.
those things I love. I'm a very sensory driven person. I love touching. So even sometimes walking through a store and I touch something, it's just, oh, I like that. So there's lots of things that make me smile. Sometimes it's the simple things of just watching watching animals play. It doesn't take much to make me smile. It's just really seeing the joy in life and the day-to-day things.
Beautiful. Now, what makes you come alive? What sets your soul on fire?
Hmm. For me, it really is one of the deep things is really seeing people, myself included, and the people that I work with, being able to really have these ahas where they see things from different perspectives. When I see things from different perspectives, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, things make sense. When I have those ahas of really appreciating the the perfection and the beauty of life's unfolding story and how what's happening right now is kind of like, oh, I get it. That makes sense. So for me, it really is. And again, this now touches into my work as well when I am in this realm of working with the sexual, spiritual aspect of our human experience. It's
Mm,
when people really come back home to themselves that lights me up. Yeah.
beautiful. We're gonna expand on that in a moment. Now,
Mhm.
on the other side of the spectrum, what makes you sad and angry?
Sometimes it's when I feel a sense of powerlessness. Sometimes when I feel like there's a sense of anger and I don't know how to express myself. Sometimes it taps into that old story of feeling like I don't have the right to. And I think that that's also where that would be by extension when I see that for people as well, when there's that sense of not having a voice or a choice.
Mm, I'm with you on that. Now, what scares you?
Hmm, great question. Other than sometimes if I were to watch a movie and there's something that suddenly happens, that sudden scare.
Bears? I don't know if you're in bear country, you know?
I've got bears. They're outside my window, actually. They eat off the plum tree right outside of my window.
Really?
Um,
Wow. What kind?
yeah, yeah. No, we've had they would
Brown?
be
Black?
the black bears. Yeah, yeah. We've
Okay.
had they're right outside the plum trees. We were going to pick them, and all of a sudden there were no plums left.
Wow.
Um, that's a really good question.
Thank you.
I think it's not necessarily. Wow, really good question. I was going to sit with this one for a moment, Payman.
I think what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I think in some ways there's that sense of a sense of danger
Mm.
that would happen to my family that I have no control over.
Mhm. What would be one example of such a thing, if I may ask?
That if there were forces
Mm.
that forces that somehow, I think a big part of it is that this is probably a big piece. If there was something that I did or didn't do that put my family in danger. I think back to when I was younger, when I was almost paralyzed, and my couple of my daughters almost drowned in different situations. Where it felt like
Wow.
I was felt paralyzed, um, didn't know what to do. That scares me when I think that aspect that somehow there was something that I would feel incapable of or unable to take care of or protect and keep my children safe.
I'm with you on that one. Yes. What would you say is your number one personal superpower?
Superpower? Mm,
Mhm.
I would say acceptance, acceptance of people as they are.
Mm. Okay. Yes, that's a beautiful one. Now, a fun question. When was the last time you had a really, really, really good hearty laugh, the type that really makes your cheeks hurt, almost tears coming, tummy hurting, rolling on the floor? You know what I'm talking about?
I do, I do. And that would be just, I'm going to say about a week and a half ago. I don't even remember, to be honest, what it was, but there was something that one of my daughters sent to me and that we sent back and forth to the three of us. And that's why I said, I haven't laughed this hard in a long, long time. So it was just, yeah, it was really great.
Absolutely. You know why I'm asking this question?
Tell me why.
Because I saw something that left me speechless, and that was that laughing and smiling is the greatest medicine in the world.
Mm.
I saw a doctor say once that if every doctor in the world were to prescribe 1 hour of mandatory laughing and smiling for every person on this planet within 30 days, 95% of all ailments would be gone because most
Ah,
due to stress. And when you're smiling and laughing, you make your being, your body toxic for
mhm.
stress. And I'm getting
Yeah.
right now as I say that. No
That's
laugh.
beautiful.
Yeah, I still
That's
watch
that's great.
cartoons. I still watch
Yeah,
cartoons. I still watch
yeah.
comedies. Seriously,
Hmm.
you only need to 1 hour a day, or even half an hour, first thing in the morning and before you sleep,
Yeah,
whenever you have time, just
yeah.
watch something that's going to make you laugh.
That's great. Actually, and I love that you said that. Just today, there was one of my friends that sent a picture of she and her brothers had gone to
Mm.
a place where they have different costumes, and she posted a picture of what she was wearing, and it was just a riot. And I said, I just love this, and she said that they had so much fun, and that's what I said is, what did I say? Bless the medicine of laughter. So just when you
Oh,
said
yeah.
that was just today. So yeah, I agree
Seriously,
with
the
you.
best things in the world are actually free. Laughing,
It's true.
smiling, saying hi to
Yeah,
someone,
yeah, yeah.
sharing a story, having a conversation, kissing someone.
Very
Doesn't
true.
have to be romantic, just, on the cheek, someone. Yeah,
Hmm.
even more if even better if it's kissing romantically. That's
Yeah,
even fun. So yeah, go. We all need to be happy. Be happy.
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Cool.
true.
What is one thing that you used to value and that you do not anymore?
Mm. The first thing that comes to mind is religion.
Oh, tell me about it. That's interesting.
I think I used to value it,
Mm-hmm.
because I had been taught that, and parents had been taught the same thing, that this is the one right way. And I don't now because I've, had some blinders taken off, and I see that it provides a perspective. It has played a role. And
Mm.
so it's maybe not that I don't value it, I value it differently.
Yes,
Rather than it being this one right way, it's just kind of like, oh, yeah.
I'm exactly at the same spot as you.
Mm.
Absolutely. And for you, was that one specific event or was it progressive?
Hmm. Again, another great question. Uh, when I was going in, and I was 28 at the time, and I was going in to be as a school teacher. So I was going in and taking my education degree,
Mhm.
and I sat in my sociology class, and the teacher, the professor, was talking about different world religions. And I remember at that time thinking, what? That sounds a lot like Christianity. What? That sounds. And so that's where it was kind of like, that's where I started to see that, these threads that were happening, through the different things. And so that's, I think, where the blinders started to come off. And
Mm.
then 6 years into my teaching degree, or after I was teaching, my sixth year of teaching, all of a sudden I got laryngitis, couldn't talk, which isn't really great for a teacher. And so over the time between September and December, I had 4 different times of laryngitis. My energy was going down, down, down. And so I said to my doctor, I said, I think I need to be off this year so I can really do that. He said, absolutely. So I did that. And I went to a health fair. One of the things that, as I was coming out, this person that I knew, I don't remember who it was, and it doesn't matter, those places and people that show up exactly when we need to, said to me that aspect of, we're not humans having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And it was actually interesting, Payman, because my initial and immediate reaction was, what do you mean? So talking about anger, that's where I got this sense of anger. What do you mean? And that's where I would say the lid was blown off, because that's what really, I would say, really
Mhm.
started my spiritual journey then.
Love that. Thank you for sharing it. Wow, beautiful. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, what is one thing that you did not value that you're valuing more and more now?
Mm. The ways that there are multiple streams back to the ocean, that there's not just one way, there are many ways to remember our oneness.
Love that. Love that. Wow, beautiful. You like traveling?
Great question. I, I, yes, and I hesitate there. It feels like it's on my list of things that I want to do simply for the joy of it. My traveling to this point, and I'm 62 years old, my traveling to this point has been primarily for when I go to take a training, do a workshop. For work, I've traveled for that reason. There have been 2 times, 3 times, pardon me, where I've traveled simply for the pleasure of traveling, which was my daughters were, somewhere out of Canada in the States or Costa Rica, and I went to have some time with them. So those were the 3 times that I recall doing that. So do I want to travel? It feels like, and I would want to. I want to do
Hmm.
some things related to my work, where I'd like to go with my work, and even more so, what would it be like to just go and travel for the sheer joy of exploration and seeing things from different things. And yeah,
Absolutely. Travel is one of the greatest blessings in the world. It's, for me, one of the best forms of education, learning about the world and learning
hmm,
about yourself. We can do an
exactly.
entire episode just on traveling, but I'd like to take you down a different type of traveling down memory lane.
Sure. Okay.
Back to when you were growing up. You know, when we were kids growing up, people around us, friends, family, relatives, teachers, neighbors, always ask us, "Hey, Lorna, what do you want to become when you grow up?" What was your answer to that as
Mm.
a little girl?
It was a nurse.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Way nurse.
I would say that there was an aspect of the care that I enjoyed. I loved the medical part of things. I would say as well, that was a part that really initiated my awareness of my body and the
Mhm.
body in itself. First of all, in the physical sense of things, which again plays into this aspect of, feeling into things now. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Growing up, what was your relationship with school? Did you love or hate school?
I loved it. I loved it.
What
Hmm.
part did you love the most?
I did enjoy learning. I enjoyed, it seemed like school came naturally and easily to me. I do remember there was this sense of, wasn't aware of it at the time, but looking back, there was this sense of wanting um, to be there and I was often the teacher's pet. I think that was because I was so attentive, so wanting to do my best and did well. And also really, I didn't cause problems. So I was sort of this ideal student, if you will. Um, I don't know if I would call it trying to please the teacher, but at the same time, there was this sense of looking at that teacher as an authority and wanting to, if they said it, then it must be good and right, and I want to do well for that. So I think there was those different facets to it.
Cool, cool, cool. What was your favorite subject in school?
Hmm. I would say around the languages, like language arts. So whether it was reading, writing, those pieces.
Which languages did you learn in school?
Um, in English was my natural when I was grade 7. So when I went into grade 7, we had just moved from the country into in a city, and I was put into a class that didn't have a second language, so unusual as a second language. So when I did get into high school and was what do I do for a second language? I chose German. So I did go through my 3 high school years learning German.
Why German?
Because I didn't know French, and German
Okay.
was the other option, and it just sounded, oh, I love it. So I'm really grateful that I did. My teacher was from Germany,
Oh,
so she
wow.
just really brought the whole thing alive. In our textbook, there was these pictures of the castles, and it was just she brought it so alive, and even different times would make food for us so we could have that part
Wow.
of the culture. It was just really a beautiful experience. And with German being somewhat similar to English, it just came very natural to me. I
Really?
I
Wow.
learned it very easily. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Are you fluent in German now?
No.
Oh, good.
Still some words I could speak, and I teach some of them to my children, grandchildren, but no, it
Yeah.
would take a little while. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Was there any topic in school that you could not stand?
It's interesting. The two that come to mind are um, math and chemistry.
Mm,
And a big part of it was that in the sense that I didn't necessarily understand things. Chemistry, I took that in high school, and it was once I could, like, I don't remember what it was, but I remember that all of a sudden something clicked. And instead of the periodic tables, instead of trying to memorize what are they, all of a sudden I saw a pattern. Oh, I get it. And it made memorizing and understanding it just kind of like, oh, I get it. This makes so much sense. And there was just a real joy that came from that and an ease from then on. Math, interestingly, I received honors in grade 5 math. And it wasn't until I was in my university years learning to teach kids how to learn math that I realized,
mm,
wow, we learn things in groups of 10. I did not know that. So
wow.
perhaps no wonder that when I got to high school that I took the easiest math that I could and
Mm,
dropped out in grade 11 because I just didn't get what they were doing. So when I went into teaching, it was kind of all of a sudden I saw that. So from there, I think so that's a big part of it. The theme between those two is patterns. When I could see the patterns of things, all of a sudden, oh, I make sense. It makes sense. So that's where when I taught math in school, and as well as my children, was I taught them those very basics of math. And when I was up until 4 years ago, I was teaching grade 1 and 2 math. and I was teaching them concepts that I didn't know even there. I was
Mm.
learning as I did it, but I saw that as a foundation, like this makes sense. And all of a sudden, again, there were the patterns and that the concepts really weren't difficult. You just need to understand what was happening. So for me, it was really a joy.
Wow, love that. Awesome. Imagine that we're in the same class, say in grade 10, 11. What kind of student or girl were you? Were you the shy one, the quiet one, the nerdy one, the chatterbox, the superstar, the cheerleader? Who were you back then?
Hmm. I would have been a quiet one. I would have been quiet if there were friends. I would have chatted, but for me, I was there for math, and I would have been focused on it. If there were people in the class, I would have known. I probably would have chatted. Even when the teacher had said quiet, I would have tried to get in those last few words, that type of a thing. But yeah, I didn't. I wasn't the class clown or anything like that, or the chatty one. It was just I was there and trying to do the best I could.
Were you popular with the boys?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, well, I did have my first boyfriend when I was in grade 5, but
Mm,
after that, no, it wasn't. And I went through junior high. Well, I did have a boyfriend in grade 7
mm,
for a little bit, but I went through junior high for the most part and high school and even college with it, how it seemed like nobody wants me. And so that was a big part of it as my girlfriends and friends, started to pair off and, some of the guys that I liked, it wasn't that way for me. So it was a real, yeah, one of my pieces of questioning what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? What do I need to be? Some of that things of who do I need to be
mm,
rather than just, okay, can I be just me? And I think it really speaks to that aspect of how we're taught to, look
mm.
outside of ourselves and, that what does it say if somebody does or doesn't want to partner with me? So real reflection of,
Cool.
yeah.
When and how did you meet your husband?
Hmm. When I was at, I think I had known him before, so we grew up in the same church system,
Okay.
and there was almost 4 years difference. So one time when he was at the college, our church college, he was in a music group that was touring across Canada. He came to my town, and I remember seeing him there, had a bit of a crush on him then. Um, and then when I went to college, then we actually started dating, which is actually kind of an interesting thing because of the fact that I was one that nobody wanted, or that was my perception. Um, and he was one that was a very popular, you know. And so it was kind of a thing of, seemed kind of an interesting match. And yet,
Mm,
we were married for 30 years and had our two beautiful daughters.
beautiful. What made him stood out? What made you realize that, hey, he is the one?
So I think there was an attentiveness to me,
Mm,
and then I remember it was again at college, and we were sitting he was sitting on the stage of the gym, and there was a floor hockey game that was happening. And I remember that he had already expressed an interest, and his brother, had conveyed this interest that, he was that my husband to be was interested in me. I remember looking at him sitting there. There was a space beside him, and there was this awareness that
mm,
if I sit down there, then this is going to go forward.
mm.
And it was sort of that maybe that soul journey, right? That says, okay, here's the journey that I take.
You know, that's so incredible. A tiny thing, action can have an incredible impact. Just you sitting there, now
Yeah.
30 years together, grandchildren's. Imagine if you had sat elsewhere. How could have things been completely different? You ever wonder about that?
Yeah. Um, I have been aware of that. I haven't played out what might have been some of the other options, just that awareness that that was that sliding door moment, right?
Mm. What would you, since you've been blessed with a successful marriage, what would you say is the number one secret to making, first of all, to selecting the right person, and second of
Mm.
all, to make it last that long?
Actually, sort of to back up,
Mm.
he and I were married for 30 years, and and 14 years ago we got unmarried, and I've
Okay.
been married to my current husband now for 11
Oh,
years.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. So to answer that question,
Mm,
I would say that in many ways that I had a recent conversation with somebody
mm,
that this aspect of how we often look at the success of a marriage is dependent on how long you're together.
mm,
And that sometimes it's not the length of it together, but what's happening within. And I know that the role that he and I played, like, wow, we have two beautiful children together and four beautiful grandchildren together. And from there, the roles that we played in terms of supporting each other, sometimes in losing ourselves, and the role we take in finding ourselves as well. Because it was actually interesting that when I, when, because for a lot of our years, we struggled. How do we make this work? How do we make this work? Because we were so different. It seemed like our paths were always, you know, there. Okay, how do we make this work? Because there was this sense of we should, and when we marry, it's for life type thing. But
mm.
we struggled, and we found different ways to come back together. And then it would sort of, how do we do this? And it seemed to me that the key pieces for ourselves was when I had what I call my midlife sexual awakening 15 years ago. Um, and the fact that I was going to be having my hands on people's bodies to support, their coming home to themselves, really connecting to their bodies in a bodywork um, realm of things, it didn't work for him. And so he said, "What do you need to do?" He said, to go on this newfound road that, just seems to light you up, or to stay in the marriage.
Mm,
And as I felt into each one, I could, as I felt into what I had experienced through my midlife sexual awakening and into this career that I had found, bringing this professional training back to Canada and becoming the teacher of that, all of those things, I just felt the aliveness. As I felt into staying in the marriage, I felt like I was like this. And the analogy that I came, it was like I felt like I was a tree that was in a pot that had grown so strong, but to stay there, it would die, that I needed to be transplanted. And so by doing that, he said, go with my blessing, do what you need to do. And in me taking that step, it set me free and it set him free, because it allowed him to break open and into a new relationship soon after that. They
mm.
are thriving as well. So for me, I think the big part of it, Payman, is that aspect of what is it that makes a marriage successful, whether they're staying together or going apart, is that each person is being true to themselves.
Love that. Thank you so much. This is beautiful. I'm glad it's recording because I'm going to listen to it myself as well and take notes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
Back
welcome.
to when you were in school, growing up. Do you remember what was your very first job and how much you get paid the first time you worked?
um, my first time I worked, I would have been probably about 12 years old,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
babysitting. Mhm.
Mhm.
I was babysitting 5 children for 50 cents an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay. Was it a lot for back then?
Um, in some ways, not really for 5 children. That probably would have been the going rate for one, maybe 2 children. But for five, it was not that much. But
Yeah, wow.
having my first job, I didn't necessarily know, and maybe I didn't know my
Exactly.
value and the responsibilities and stuff. So
Yeah, wow.
I didn't know I could ask for more.
Well, this is what life is about. It's a school to learn.
That's right.
So
That's right.
it's important to know what to do, but it's 10 times more important to know what not to do.
Hmm.
Awesome. Let's move forward. From the moment you
Sure.
left school to now, how would you describe your path? Would you say it was pretty much straightforward, smooth sailing? Once you're into one lane, you were set for life? Or was it more like turns and twists, like a roller coaster?
Twists and turns and ups and downs and all arounds and twists. And sometimes, as I talk about it, it's onto the undercurrent
Mm.
and that type. So lots of mountains, lots of valleys, lots of circles, lots of pauses, lots of
Yeah,
and yeah. So I think that's a part of it. Yeah, that I would say is a part of the richness of it.
totally, totally. Talk us through your professional journey so far from the moment you left school.
Mm. When I left school, I went to into be a teacher. I was volunteering in my children's classrooms on a weekly basis, and one of
Mm.
the teachers repeatedly said, "You should be a teacher." No, 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 I can't do that. You should be a teacher. And one day, after carving pumpkins on the way home, I thought, I wonder if I could be a teacher. That January, I was enrolled in our local university program, and then I went on to do that. So I taught in the schools for a bit, went on with my health crisis, went through that journey of my what I call my the spiritual awakening that was happening, and the next 2 years, half time in teaching. In that process as well, I took the step into doing energy work, so taking various trainings, and then one of the trainings that I did take, I ended up becoming one of their teachers. I was their first teacher, and aside from them, the creators, their teacher. And then so I trained some of the other teachers. So that was my path, and I did that for close to a decade. And there, things were overlapping a little bit. And then while I was still doing that as well, uh, around the time just prior to leaving and getting unmarried in my first marriage, I uh, I decided my girls were out of the home, so it was just kind of, I needed to find out, who am I? Who
Mm.
am I? And so I took various courses and retreats and workshops and trainings in the sexual erotic realm of things. And one of those trainings was, as I say, I met myself literally and figuratively, physically, human wise, spiritually in the mirror.
Mm.
And that's where I had my spiritual awakening, or my what I call my midlife sexual awakening, where what I had been taught was so gross and disgusting and just shameful, and even took me to that level of existential shame. When I got down to that level, all of a sudden it was kind of like, this is so pure and good and right.
So,
And that's where I say, in an instant, that 180-degree, where
mm.
from going from shame of my own body and sexuality to life is erotic. And I could speak with
Mm.
ease. I could speak with joy about the sexual erotic realm of things. And that's why it became this natural thing to then take my love and gift of teaching into the sexual erotic realm of things. And that's where what I've been doing for the last 15 years, and now bringing the sexual and the spiritual together.
Mhm. Beautiful path. One thing that came to mind as we're speaking
Yeah.
was you mentioned earlier that religion was something that you used to value, and then since you had awakening, you're not as much as before differently. And now you mentioned having your sexual awakening from where it was for you something to be ashamed of to something to be embraced of. How do you connect the two? For example, was that shame, feeling shameful, was tied to how religion views sexuality? I don't know if I'm expressing this correctly, but how do you tie the two? Understand, having a better understanding of religion at the same time, fully going from being ashamed of sexual desires to actually embracing and see how beautiful, pure they are. I don't know if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Do you see the connection between the
That's
two?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
I see it as the way that I phrase it, I preface it, is by divine design.
Mm.
That and I use different metaphors, different ways of looking at things. And a key one is the mirror, and
Mm.
another one is this aspect of story. There's actually three: movies, mirrors, and merry-go-rounds. Um, Looking at the mirror, when we look in a mirror, we see the opposite of what is. Um, and so how do we know when there's something that's really powerful, very valuable? It's where the signposts say, look the other way, or there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of, oh, danger signs, don't go here. And so in the storyline of things, that's where that's where religion plays its role in making it seem like sex, which was what we come from. So why would it be demonized? Why would it be wrong? It's our portal from our spiritual, from the spirit world into the human experience. That's the portal, if you will. And so when we are coming into this human experience, let's cover it up. Let's point out, for permission, for a partner, you're looking out, look for authority outside, right? Even God is out there. And so we are forgetting the treasure that is within. And so and that's one of the things that I get to do with people is, right, to support them, come on home, come on home, not only to our sexual wholeness, both in terms of this body, whatever body we're in, uh, also the feminine, the masculine within, and also this vessel as form for spirit. So I look at it at various different levels. So the role that religion has played is, let's make it, it's played its role in reinforcing out there and other.
Mhm.
And so as I bring this back together, it's really spirituality, and it started out as one, let's make it seem two, and now it's coming back together. So
Isn't that beautiful? Once we come, it's back. It's a full circle. Once you, just like you said, we come from there. One of the most beautiful thing because it brings not just two people, but energies, vibrations, two souls
mhm,
together. Literally,
mhm,
that's when
mhm,
you really feel
mhm.
connected and become one. Literally, with someone.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then to allow that, this is where I use the mirror, is can we allow that everything and everyone that we see outside of us is mirroring what's happening here. So even allowing that, I'm looking for that masculine outside there, or I'm looking for the feminine outside there. It's kind of like, oh, can I look for it and find it within? And so to be able to really start to integrate what's right within us, hidden in plain view, here it is in our
Mhm.
wholeness, right here, right now. So to me, and as I say, is can we be our own best lover? Can we be our own? Can we recognize and experience our wholeness? Sometimes through connection with somebody else, and sometimes it's through the mirror of what is or isn't outside of us to be able to bring us back into the awareness and the experience of our wholeness within.
Mhm. I had a similar awakening just in the past 2 years. I've had my spiritual awakening 4 years ago. So I've been on a completely beautiful journey. And one of the realization for me was sex is more just than a physical act. It's something that when you have sexual encounter with someone, it's an exchange of energy, vibration, trauma, limiting beliefs. And because of that, I've become to see sex not only as something very sacred, but something to be very selective now. It's not like just because
Mm-hmm.
she's hot or whatever that you can go and get your rocks off. But no, now you have to be very careful because you're gonna literally inherit that person's energy. If they have any trauma and issues, you're gonna get those. So as a result
Mm-hmm.
of that, I've had a much better understanding of sex, and I've been very, very selective nowadays. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that I have a beautiful girlfriend now, that she's the one that helped me come to this realization. But before, I was the guy that just literally like a rabbit jumping around.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
since I got
Mm-hmm.
this awakening, it's like, wow, this makes so much
Mm-hmm.
sense. And just like you said, it's back to the source,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
all drops of the same ocean, even
Mm-hmm.
and the glue that gets us together is like exactly this sex,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And what I love as well is, as I mentioned earlier, looking at the aspect of the story of things is, you know, hopping around like a jack, a rabbit, and all of the things, the different ways that we,
Mhm,
me being shut down and disconnected from my sexuality, the way we are, it's all played a role in the unfolding story of who
mhm,
we are, and so everything has perfectly, beautifully played its role for our awakenings, for our strengthenings, for our adventures, and to be able to, and I think that's one of the things, is to be able to look back and be in this place of awe and appreciation, even though at the time it didn't seem like it, or even when it's sort of still unfolding or still opening up to have that perspective, it can seem like, oh my goodness, but wow, when we start to open up the treasure chest and really see how everything that has come before has maybe been a place of hiding our power, hiding our wholeness, hiding our divinity. When we start to backtrack and appreciate those, it's this reclaiming again of who we are.
It's beautiful. Once you understand that, there's no going back, seriously. Because for me, I look at things, and especially sex, very differently now than before. I've gone into a journey now of, can expand on that, understand the power of semen retention and things like that.
Yeah.
I had a beautiful
Yeah.
conversation the other day with another gentleman from Canada, from the East Coast. And he was telling me the power of tantric sex and, having sex without ejaculating, both for the men and the
Mm-hmm.
women, how powerful, because that's the source of our life energy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
Mm-hmm.
Napoleon Hill in his blockbuster Think and Grow Rich, his entire chapter on sex transmutation. That's a material that must, in my opinion, should be taught to high school, in every school in the world. Because
Mm-hmm.
one of the religion I came across, and I was just sharing that last night over drinks with a couple of my friends, is if I had canalized the energy I spent of the last, especially since in my teenage years to the past 10, 15 years, pursuing, sex into other pursuits, I would have been a
Mm-hmm.
maybe nine-figure millionaire by now. Look at how much
Mm-hmm.
effort, time it takes just to pursue someone. And all of
Mm-hmm.
that for what? The
Mm-hmm.
ROI is
Yeah.
very low. And I'm sure that applies for both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking from
Mm-hmm.
perspective of a man, but same thing for a woman. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So,
Mm-hmm.
wow.
Uh, and it's actually interesting. Yeah, it is. It's truly amazing. Um, and in some ways, for women, it can almost be almost the opposite.
Mhm,
That women, when they can keep diving into there and experiencing, say, multiple orgasms more and more, it
mhm.
actually is enlivening. It almost gives them
Sure.
that form. Coming back to the piece about the ejaculation, one of the things I love to connect to, and again, it comes back to the aspect of story and the meaning that we give to things, that when we think about emotions in the body, when we think about emotions, whether it's I'm frustrated, I'm hungry, I'm angry, I'm lonely, all of those things, we're actually not hungry, lonely, angry, frustrated. That's the word that we've attached to the sensation that we're feeling inside based on the meaning that we give what's happening. The way that I like to do it, and this is where it comes back to the ejaculation, that and I'll use men as an example, that ejaculation and orgasm are actually two different things.
Absolutely.
A lot of times when an orgasm happens, ejaculation happens at the same time. And so there's this sense that, oh, ejaculation is an orgasm, as opposed to you can ejaculate without orgasming, you can orgasm without ejaculating. But because they happen so often the same time, they are thought to be the same. In the same way, because we feel something and right away we've been taught, we've learned to label what we're feeling. We think, oh, I'm feeling angry. No, I'm feeling this raw sensation. Once I can let the words go, then I can come back in and feel what's happening in the body,
Mhm.
tapping into the energy. The word, holding on to the word, keeps us from tapping into that raw energy that's alive within.
Beautiful. Wow. I love this conversation. This is beautiful. That's a great segue. Now, tell us about your business, your zone of genius. How are you making the world a better
Ah,
place around you and
mm.
around the world?
Thank you. I love it. And I do have clients around the world. Ah, when I first began, I was doing in-person sessions with some online. Now it's primarily online with some in-person. Supporting people in really coming home to their bodies and their sexuality. Women usually arrive to me saying, I want to connect with my body and my sexuality. I want to be able to express authentically. I want to be able to have choice in how I dress. I want to be able to heal from traumas. I want to be able to feel connected. I want to be able to be open to relationships. Men, often people in male bodies, usually arrive to me saying, I want to be the best that I can be for my partner, my girlfriend, my wife.
Mm,
And uh, So different ways, and some men often as well arrive wanting to just to be able to feel, to be able to receive
Mm.
touch, so it's just that body work, just for them to just soak in, the touch. Because again, what we've often been taught is women, you're emotional, but do not feel sexual because you'll be called a slut if you are. Outside of this container of marriage that has been deemed this is the one right way to be. Anything outside of there is wrong, bad, sinful, shameful. Men, on the other hand, are taught you're sexual, boys will be boys, men will be men, but don't feel emotional. Don't be a wuss, toughen up, don't cry. Big boys don't cry. So on one level, we have all been taught to not feel some aspect of us that is natural.
Mm.
And so for me, the way that no matter who I'm working with, whether it's somebody in a male body or female body, somebody that's in a transgendered body, somebody that's in a body that doesn't even hang on to a certain gender, it's about really helping them to feel at home in their bodies by helping them to feel. I start with working at consent. This idea of consent goes beyond just yes and no, but coming back into what does it feel like in your body to feel at home, at peace, from which consent can then be expressed. So I take them back into that feeling sense. And then working with people to be their own best lovers. How can they give themselves the touch they want to have from somebody else? Can they be their own best lovers? Sex is often done, whether it's what's called masturbation. I call it an expanded version of masturbation is I call personal erotic practice, PEP.
Mm.
So I
I
teach
like that.
people in their PEP program is actually to um, find their voice, the sound, the movement, breath, because sex, whether it's with somebody else or in masturbation, is often done quickly, quietly, and in the dark. So I say, let's bring sex out of the closet in your own experience as well as generally speaking, and help people to find their voice, to find their breath. Because when there's something that we don't want to feel, we hold our breath. So, okay, let's breathe. The more you breathe, the more you feel. When you're relaxed, you feel even more. Use some sound, let some movement happen, and start starting to let people feel at home in their bodies. I work on mindset with people, and I don't talk about mindset of think positively or affirmations. I say, no, look at the
Mm.
stage that's happening in the mind. Look at the players that are happening there, because we get wrapped up in thinking the voices that I hear, this is me, what am I doing? Rather than sitting back with the popcorn and saying, wow, there's quite a show happening on in there. And what's often happening in here is very different than what's happening in our day-to-day real life, if you will. So by one-on-ones, getting ready to launch a group program, I also work in the realm of domination and submission in
Oh, wow.
BDSM as a healing modality. It's the way I approach it. It's a way for people to, in a consensual way, to feel their bodies, to let go, to own their voice, to own their things. So lots of different levels of empowering women and training men, the masculine. And the way that I look at it is that, again, coming back to the mirror, is that the feminine has been down, the masculine up in what has been called the patriarchy.
Mm.
And as I say, the patriarchy is not men. It's when the masculine is put in a primary thing. God is a male God. Man is the head of the household. When we look in the mirror, what's it like? Okay, here we go. And
Mm.
the feminine rising, women's empowerment, but it can't, to be an effective and true empowerment, it needs to include the masculine. And the masculine is there in service to and support of the feminine. And we can
Wow.
look at that as female-led relationships. That's one way to do it, and that's a starting place for some people. For some, then it gets to this place of recognizing the feminine as the energy, the masculine as the form.
Oh, wow.
And so then, even as a spiritual thing, the breath that lives us, breathes us, moves us, this body, no matter what we're in, is the form, is the masculine.
Mm.
It's that breath. And hidden in plain view, here we are, a wholeness, simply because we are here in the human experience, whole and complete.
Love that. Wow. Wow. Who's your ideal client?
Beautiful question. Someone who is um, truly ready for a change, somebody who is able to and willing to do the inner work, somebody who is open to looking at things from different perspective, can see the role that being in the victim has played and is ready to rise up there, um, to be able to um, yeah, I people who are really ready for change, and it may show up simply as they want to have a better relationship. They might want to with themselves or with somebody else. They might want to move past the trauma of sexuality. Right now, I'm working with 4 different people who are who have come to me because of childhood sexual abuse. So those are ones who are really ready to dive into some big pieces, and the as I say, the bigger the trauma, the more gold there is, the more power that's held within there, and the bigger change that's ready to happen. So people who are able to trust themselves, who are ready to embrace all that has come before, even though they might not be able to verse that and say
Mm,
that at the beginning, but they're saying, I know there's something more. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to access it, and I'm ready. It's that I can feel it in my body. I'm ready to take this next step.
beautiful, beautiful. What is the main uh, pain point that you're helping your clients solve, and what is the main benefits they get by working with you? So basically, it's a two-pronged
Mm-hmm.
question.
Mm-hmm. People that have lived in in some ways a disconnection to or a confusion of or an inauthentic expression and connection to their own sexuality, um, and whether that's through trauma, whether that's through religious upbringing, however it is, it's just somehow they're saying they're not sitting easily, it's not flowing, something just isn't right, something is missing. um, and the benefits are feeling at home in their bodies, being able to live from the inside out,
Mm,
in to be able to, instead of that place of who am I supposed to be? How do I please? What should I do? It's just kind of like, here I am. And they get to live their own inner truth. They get to act from a place of alignment. And from there, whatever the relationships are that unfold, they can see that and experience that from their own place of wholeness and connection.
beautiful. One of my good friends and current VIP client is a world-leading expert in tantric healing from the UK. And what he said something that really left me speechless. And he said that trauma first exists in some, it doesn't matter, all kinds of trauma, regardless, first resides in the body before the mind. So you have to release it by healing the body first before you can heal whatever trauma they have. What is your take on that approach?
In many ways, we yes, and the reason being, I would say, is that the body is the instrument of the spirit, and the very so when we start to clog up or cover up the
Mhm.
what's happening in the body, that ability to feel, that ability to live in harmony and truth with oneself, which children, when we come into this life, we have that natural thing, to be able to respond to, I'm hungry, I'm without labels, right? I'm wow, whether it's a wet diaper or hungry or cold, whatever, there's that bodily response to it.
Mhm.
When we start labeling things, that's where the mind comes in, right? And so it's happening in the body first. The mind then is what helps to reinforce and hold it, if you will, in the body. I remember in my training as a sexological bodywork trainer, um, that what we were taught, one of our books was written by Jack Moran, who has since passed. He was a psychotherapist, and he actually used to send his clients to us as body workers because he would say that we can get somebody can experience as much healing and clearing from the body in one session than they could in 20 talk sessions.
Oh,
So it
wow.
really comes back to that aspect of feeling. That's where I take people into feeling. That's okay, let's feel. Feel as fully as you can. Use your breath to feel. Let the sound come. Feel at home in your body. So feeling on multiple levels is what's there, because that's when we can do that, then the release can happen. Even when the mind can't comprehend it, can't understand it, can't put words to it, it doesn't matter. That's where the healing happens.
Beautiful, beautiful. Is your program mostly one-on-ones or small classes?
Great question. I do have right now one-on-ones. I have done different group programs before. I'm getting ready to launch one in the new year. That one's going to be on consent, but it's really the foundation or the first step in my 3, 6, and 9 month program that I do with people to be able to, yeah, look at the different steps. For the women, I call it rise, roar, and reign. Really rise into their power, roar, let their voices be heard in terms of connecting to their sexuality, and reign is really stepping into their leadership. And I work also with men various ways. Sometimes it's working with them through that consent for self-love so they can move beyond the confusion of what they want, what they've been taught they should or can't be, all of those pieces. So I've got, I'm working on a membership program as well, and a community that allows for women and men, because I think that's a big part of it, is we have been so separate, don't work. And I want to be able to bring everybody together so that people
Mm.
can see, this is, I want to hear it from a man's voice. I want to hear it from a woman's voice. And some people I have been criticized for, why is it that you're in this work and you talk about women and men? When you know that there are transgender, and how are you accommodating that? And I say, I do it very intentionally because we have been taught there are two people. There's a woman that has this body, there's a man that has this body. And so I start there because that's what is familiar. That's the lens that people look at. And I bring them into this journey of, oh, okay, there's masculine and feminine. Yeah, feminine and masculine. Oh, wait a minute, there's feminine and masculine within me. So it's that journey of starting where people are at and bringing them into that experience of their oneness through the program. So for me, it's really important that I bring them into community, because, as I say, this awakening is only complete when it's the feminine leadership, the men, that there's this harmony that's happening.
Beautiful. How long is your program for someone that needs help, for example? How long will it take for them to get the results that they're seeking?
Mm. It really varies. Some clients I've worked, they've stepped into a year-long program with me, and huge changes. And again, that was one that was working with the childhood sexual abuse, that had been gone on for 14 years. uh, for some women, it's really stepping into a piece that it's been for, say, 3 months, 6 months. It really can vary using on what the tools are. And some of them I say, okay, let's start with 3 months, and let's start with 6 months. One woman, I actually said, let's start with 1 month, because then that way it was sort of that step. Because sometimes when we have not been able to trust our bodies because of various traumas of varying degrees, anytime when when our voices, our choices are overridden, then, and it's not from a victim place, that's just how things have played out, that sometimes stepping into a bigger, longer program can seem like, oh, no, okay, let's take one step at a time. Let's do 1 month. Let's reassess. Okay, where do we go from here? So for me, it really is giving options to people and then say, okay, here's what I offer. What feels true for you? And rather than them trying to fit into what I have, it's saying, I've got this buffet of things. What do you want to, what feels true for you? What do you feel like you can manage, both commitment wise, time wise, money wise? How is that for you? And yeah, so that's what I really do, is I meet people where they're at and take them on the journey that is best for them, based on not me saying what's best for them, but what feels like a fit for both of us.
Awesome. Speaking of that, share with us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from one of your clients so far.
Hmm. Wow. The one that comes to mind, there's been so many, and I've got different testimonials of people, like even from somebody just recently messaged me from a training that I had taken her through last year. She said, "This has changed my life." And I get that oftentimes. The one that comes to mind is 12 years ago, and it gets still, and here's why, even though it was longer ago. It was a woman who came to me in her 70s. And that's why it speaks to this fact that it's never too late.
Mm,
She came to me. She had been raised in a Christian home. She's saying, "I'm getting older. I just have this sexual stuff." She had her baggage as well from, growing up in the religious context of things, of how it needed to be. She said, "Please help me shut this down." Okay,
mm,
okay, we'll do that. And I had her first session, and at the end, she said, "Oh my goodness, why would I ever want to shut this down?" And so we met, and she just came alive. She is now in her 80s. She's a world-renowned artist. Her art became infused with that alive, erotic energy. She would often paint while she was doing her practice, her PEP practice.
wow.
Her painting actually became, she started to do more exhibits. She then went on as well um, to her art form changed the way that her paintings, it took on a whole new life for her, and she found the love of her life, and she is
Beautiful.
alive and well and thriving. So
I love that. That's beautiful. Awesome. How are you getting your clients?
hmm. Right now, it has been by referral, people hearing me speak, hearing people, for clients speak about me, and they say, "Hey, you're my person." Sometimes it might be we're in the same group and we just reach out, and there's just, "Oh, you're my person," and that's what yeah, that's what some couple of people in this last few weeks have said to me. "You're my person."
Love that.
So
It's the best way. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Beautiful conversation. Let's start wrapping things up. To finish off, I'd like to ask you another series of rapid fire questions, but this time
Okay.
on advices. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
What's the best piece of advice you've received so far?
That I've ever received. My grandma. When I was 13 years old, she was helping me wash the dishes. She was teaching me how to wash the pots and pans. And she said, "Start with the inside. By
Mm,
the time you get to the outside, it will have taken care of itself."
and that applies to many more things than just dishes.
Exactly. At the time, I thought that's what it was. Later on, it was kind of like, oh, wow. So I call it wisdom at the kitchen sink with my grandma. Yeah.
So that was how I was told when I was starting shaving my head. Start from here and go air. Inside, outside. Applies to everything. Okay. Beautiful. Now, what has been the worst piece of advice you've received so far?
Um, hmm. Worst piece of advice. Don't tell.
Oh, wow. I love that. Don't tell, just show instead.
It was the worst piece was when things were being done to me. Don't
Mhm.
tell. Don't
Oh,
tell what's
wow.
happening to you,
Oh,
which
wow.
which really shut me down, thinking that somehow I was wrong and what was happening to me was okay and I was supposed to put up with it and it was
Mhm.
acceptable. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Now, imagine that you were blessed with a time machine and you can go back in time and sit face to face with 18-year-old Lorna. What's the number one piece of advice you would give to her knowing all that you know now?
Hmm. Interesting, because 18 was when I got married. Um, it would be um, the journey you're going to take. will have its trials, will have its celebrations, will be awesome, it will be horrible, it will be confusing, and it will be awesome. Trust the process, go through
Mm,
it, live it fully, dive right into it. Forget we've had this conversation, live it fully, and when you come out the other side, you'll remember and look back and see how amazing it was.
love that. Love that. Now, do you have your own podcast?
Soon to be. Yeah, soon to be.
Awesome. Question: what has been so far the main reason you haven't started your podcast, especially with someone like you with the gifts that you've been blessed with?
Thank you.
Mm,
Great question. I love these questions you have.
thank you.
um, in some ways, it seems that I get held up on the sense of all the technology. Oh, I have to have it this way.
Mm,
I have to this way, um, and oh, when it gets this way, all these extra things to do to make these short pieces and all of these things and get it onto here. And it's just kind of like, I just want to speak. I just want to be able to get on, speak, put it onto my YouTube channel, put it onto, where I can and just speak. Um, yeah, I think
love that.
that's a big part of it.
Love that. We're gonna take care of that. So everything happens
Okay,
for a reason at the right time. Imagine, let's project future project. Imagine that you have your
sure.
podcast and it's very successful. And today you have the pleasure of interviewing the most special person in your life, and that is yourself.
Mm.
What is the first question you want to ask yourself? Don't think too much. First thing that comes to mind.
First question I'm going to ask myself into this place when I look here, what I'm going to ask myself right now.
And that's you interviewing yourself on your podcast, on your very successful and profitable podcast.
Mm. The first question that comes was, did you have any idea that this is where it was going to go?
Wow. And what's your answer?
No, in my biggest dreams, um, I couldn't fathom that this was um, that this is what could happen through me when I really lived and let my voice out.
Absolutely. One of the most powerful decisions I've come across that I realized myself is your voice matters. Your story matters. You matter. The fact that you've made it this far in life, that's a miracle that needs to be shared far and wide. And that applies to every single one of us. It's not a single person on this planet that doesn't have a story worth sharing, that doesn't have
Yeah,
gifts worth sharing. And this is my mission to inspire, to activate people to first identify the zone of genius, their gift, and then embrace them loud and proud, and then share them even louder and prouder around them around the world, leveraging this. This is my mission. I
beautiful.
do love that. Now,
Yeah.
the last question I ask, and that's my favorite question to ask, and that is, what is the smallest thing you've done that has had the greatest, deepest, most profound positive impact in both your life and business? For me, for example, it's been starting my podcast 4 years ago that completely not only changed, transformed, and even literally in some ways saved my life. How about you, Lorna?
Mm. I would say it goes back to that situation um, when my former husband said, "What do you choose?" And when I felt into it, felt what was true for me, what felt alive within, and followed that.
Absolutely love that. That's beautiful. Awesome. Now, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Mm. I am on Facebook, Lorna Gale. Look for Somatic Sex Educator, award-winning speaker, Sex and Spirit Alchemist of the Feminine-Led Life. That's how you'll know it's me. I am on LinkedIn as well, and by email, lorna@lornagale.com. So various ways to do that. I do have on my a page on the Trusted Bodywork site. People can go ahead and read some different testimonials and find out some of those pieces, some of the offerings that I do on this buffet table. Um, and what I would invite people to do is to accept my invitation to strings. no strings, simply an opportunity to touch base and connect and to let themselves be seen, let themselves be heard as we find out what is that core piece. It's not a sales call, it's simply a let's meet and connect. How can I support you? How can I support you in knowing what is your next best step? What is that piece that is ready now to open that door for you?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Love that. Listen, Lorna, absolutely blast talking to you. Love your story. Love your gifts. Love what you're doing. And we've barely just scratched the surface. I'm sure we can do a few more episodes going even deeper into those chapters of your life, those gifts that you've been blessed with. I salute you. You're truly with a heart. Keep shining your light. Keep blessing the world with presence, your impact, your gifts. And never forget, you're Lorna. You're a gift. So stay safe, stay
Thank
awesome. God bless you. And talk to you very soon, my friend. Take care. Good night.
Thanks, Payman. Good
Welcome.
night.